Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is Chicken Ranch Records, the podcast, episode 3. On the program, we've got Doyle Jeter. He is the co-founder of Enoch's Irish Pub and Cafe in Monroe, Louisiana, also an esteemed artist in the North Louisiana area. We just hadn't talked for a while on the phone, and hope to have him back again, too. It's really great stuff. His club is really influential for a lot of musicians passing through North Louisiana. It's kind of a mainstay of that area, and if you get a chance, stop by there and have some food. And here's Doyle Jeter. Yeah.
Okay, so like, how did we get started? You asked.
How did you get started? How did you get started in arts and music and everything? Because I know you're.
Well, try not to make it too long, but basically, I was born in Louisiana, and my mother's from New York City. So, and my dad's from Gina, Louisiana. They met while he was in the Navy in New York City on leave, and married her. Took her. They got married, took her to the suburbs of Gina, and you probably know that area. She was thinking Brooklyn, Bronx, that kind of thing. Had never seen a cow in her life, in real life. But, that was a big shock to her, being a Catholic, Spanish, Yankee, et cetera. He brought her down to the wilds, the boondocks, Nebo, actually, of Gina, with Pentecostal parents, no TV, no music, no nothing. And so anyway, long story short, after a year, I was born, and at a year old, we left Faraday, where my dad was working, which is kind of ironic in a way, the music scene there. Something must have kicked in. And we moved back to New York City, to the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And I pretty much stayed there with my parents till I was 7. We moved to Bucks County, PA. My dad got a promotion, Pennsylvania, north of Philly. And, the formative years kicked in, I guess you'd say. The music was starting, obviously, when I was 11 when the Beatles hit. And prior to that, it was, the Airways, American Bandstand was in Philadelphia. A lot of people don't know that, but it started there. And, you'd hear all the Temptations, Four Tops, Chai Lights, the local boys, the Delphonics, my heroes. And, I took notice of it, I guess. And of course, when the Beatles hit, like everybody on the planet, we all got turned on. I even tried playing guitar in a band at one time, but it just was terrible. So, but I had always been interested in drawing, and my uncle Enrique Rodriguez, his real name. He was an artist, a painter, down in the village, Greenwich Village, they lived. So it was really the pre-hippie scene, the beats and all of that going on, beatniks. And I was just young but impressionable, I guess. So, it rubbed off on me, because from then on I was interested in painting, et cetera, drawing. So at the end of the 60s, it's an old story, probably boring as heck by now, but I was living in Pennsylvania, and my father said, we're going to move to Louisiana. I have more job opportunities. So the summer of 69, I stayed up there till they came down here and got settled in West Monroe. And by chance, a lot of my family lives up around Bethel, New York. You've probably heard the name of that town because of Woodstock Fest. And I was able to go to it barely. I was only 16. The only band I saw was Canned Heat, but we met Wavy Gravy and everybody. So by August, that was August 15, 16, 17, something like that. I think August 23rd, I was registered at West Monroe High School, so in Louisiana. So another major shock to the system, I guess you'd say.
It's a massive culture shock there. It's something else.
Oh, an absolute culture shock. And, it was and it wasn't, because the first day of high school, I ran into a guy that had a yellow submarine button on his lapel of his jacket, and I just grabbed him and said, "Who are you?" I needed to know some people. And, from that, I was able to meet a bunch of the local musicians who I consider legendary. Danny Rhodes, Tommy Miller, a guy named Mike Rhodes, who is now is probably the most well-known Nashville session player on the planet. He's from West Monroe. And I met all these guys. They had bands like 5 by 5 and the Blue Light, and all these great names who were just kick-ass musicians. And we'd go out to the park and see them play, Forsyth Park, on Sunday afternoons. And it became apparent to me real quick that the people in this area were equally, if not more talented than, the stuff I was hearing in, Philadelphia area. At least in my young mind, that made sense. So, it was a shock, and it wasn't a shock, because that got me through. The music actually, really did get me through it all. And, there's a guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Mike, but he's absolutely a legendary performer in the Austin area. Although he lives in Houston now, his name's Bobby Bridger. I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby.
Not heard of him. The name sounds kind of familiar, but there's so many.
Yeah. Well, he's from
legends.
Columbia, Louisiana, originally.
Oh, wow!
And it's just a weird chain of events. I took an art class at high school, like the first art class I took in West Monroe. I took him up in Philly, but he was the art teacher there, and he was actually known as Bobby Durham, but he was a musician, fairly well-known music singer-songwriter. Recorded another local hero legend, a guy named Fred Carter Jr., who you're probably familiar with, lives from Winsboro. Fred brought him to Nashville, and Bobby, he soon quit the art teaching gig at West Monroe High School. He ended up recording some and ended up in Austin, Texas. And he wrote the theme song, Healing the Wisdom, for the Kerrville Music Fest. That may be one reason you know who he is. And, the music thing just kept me interested throughout college. After high school, I ended up majoring in art, fine art, undergrad at the local university here, Northeast Louisiana University. And, I ended up, after that, one of the teachers at the NLU then was a guy named Louis Lovering, who sadly passed just last year. He was from San Antonio and had gone to grad school in New Mexico. Talked me into going out there. They gave me a full scholarship and assistant teacher assistant and all that stuff. So Yvette and I left with Molly, our daughter, 6 weeks old, and moved to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and went to grad school out there. I'm trying to make sense of all this, but while there, and I majored in printmaking and painting there under Elmer Schooley, a teacher. I could go on and on with this. There's a great printmaking outfit. There's a great printmaking outfit in Austin, as a matter of fact, called Flatbed Printers.
Oh, yeah.
And people like Terry Allen and people like that print there. And those folks that own that and run it are, she's a master printer. I can't think of her name, but they went to New Mexico Highlands University in Las Vegas, New Mexico. So it's all this weird, I guess meant to be serendipitous stuff that's gone for me. It makes sense to me. So other folks probably yawn by it. But, while in Vegas, we call it Las Vegas, New Mexico, God, that Los Viva Terlingua came out right before that, for Jerry Jeff's album. The Lost Gonzo Band, that was my mainstay. Relating this to Austin. One of their albums came out. I think it's called Thrills, with a clown on the cover. Just an unbelievable album. We listened to that incessantly because the radio stations were limited in Las Vegas, New Mexico. But it was wonderful because it turned me on to Tejano Conjunto music, Flaco Jimenez and all that. So, after grad school, I started getting teaching job offers in Louisiana. We moved back to Louisiana, sorry. And, the teaching jobs I took and tried, I just wasn't into them. And a series of events, I decided I just wasn't meant for me. And so it's an old joke. What does somebody with a master's degree in printmaking do? Well, you open an Irish bar. It's an old joke among some folks, but we opened a pub, as you know, on St. Patrick's Day, 1980, in Monroe, Louisiana. And something you may not know is the original. I keep saying that because we've known each other so long, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not like we just met or anything. Yeah, but I started thinking of names. I was saying, God, I was actually running a forklift at my dad's warehouse to make money. And I wanted to open a cafe, pub, like bistro, like an old Greenwich Village coffee house, you know, back to this, you know, the formative years of hanging out in the village. And, you know, I still am in love with the village, even though it's changed. I was just there. We walked the streets and breathed the air. But I decided to open a cafe, and I found a place. My dad, God bless him, he supported me to do it. You know, helped me get a loan at the bank and gave me a few bucks. And the original name of Enoch was actually going to be Idiot Wind. I just thought that made perfect sense.
Like the Bob Dylan song?
Cafe. Yeah, my favorite Dylan, one of the top 3 fave Dylan songs. And to me, it made perfect sense. Idiot Wind Cafe, and it was going to have a subtext on the sign. It's a wonder they can even feed themselves. You know, one of the lines from the song. And you know, of course, all my good friends took the piss out of me and said, "You're a fucking idiot. You need to name it Enoch." And I was like, "Oh, come on! I never used that name. It's my first name, Enoch Doyle Jeter." And I never used it, but, you know, the more it sounded like Enoch's Cafe or Enoch's Pub and Cafe. It sounds pretty good. So we went with it, and, you know, it worked. So, but, you know, goings were tough at first. I did an interview with the local college paper, as a matter of fact, that people still give me crap about, that I mentioned that we were just going to be a nice little cafe with coffee and sandwiches, deli, and art on the walls, and probably no music. And within a month, we had live music. So, you know, it kind of set the course for 1980, 41 years on.
Yeah, it's like...
Tell me if I'm blabbing too much.
No. This is fantastic. It's a lot of stuff I hadn't known about you, and then especially the early years. I knew that, you know, you had Enoch's in Monroe, one in Shreveport, and then, but I knew you didn't know pre-1980, and I was there.
Yeah, well, 1980 was what kicked it in. Of course, you know, I mean, not to dwell on before that, but you know, my family are just a bunch of real characters. We all have them in all our families, but it's specifically my family up in New York. We're all my mom's family, and a lot of them still live up there. As a matter of fact, I was at the 50th anniversary for the Woodstock Festival. I guess it's been 2 years ago now, 2019, and it was such a gas. A bunch of my first and second cousins, we all had get a family reunion on the river, like Delaware River, 14 miles from the site, and then a few of us went over for, you know, music. But, you know, again, that's what influenced me, I guess. But all my family in New York are Spanish. I'm half Spanish, Rodriguez, Jimenez, and a little Italian thrown in. So you had all these passionate characters. So my Uncle Jose Ignacio, I'm listening to flamenco when I'm like 5 or 6 years old, you know, and it takes a toll on you. It's amazing in many ways that I never became a musician, but the art thing, I guess the art genes were a little heavier. But I certainly became best friends with many musicians and really dear friends with a lot of my musical heroes, which has been a gas, as you can imagine. But back to Bobby Bridger, when Bobby moved to Austin, I got out of Highlands University in New Mexico in late 76. And by 1999, you know, I was working on getting this place open, Enoch's. And 1980, I think Bobby probably came up and played by early 82, if I remember right. Prior to that, it was a lot of local, wonderful performers before that, Johnny O'Neill, Kenny Bill Stenson, a lot of local folks, Bob McElroy. And when Bobby came up and played, and of course I was visiting Austin, a friend of mine from New Mexico moved there in 77, so I started going there then. And, you know, I was hooked. I love Austin, Texas. Still do. It's changed. But But anyway, Bobby came up and played, and late '82 probably. And when he played, after he got done, we sat down. He stayed the night at the house, and he said, "You really ought to call Gary P. Nunn to come up here." And I was like, "You're kidding. No way in hell would he come here and get Bob." Said, "Oh, yeah, he would." And so I called Gary P., and Gary came up and played, and, we became immediate friends. When Gary got done playing that night, again, stayed at the house, he said, "You ought to call Jerry Jeff Walker." And, I was like reeling, because these were heroes of mine, these guys. And called Jerry Jeff. His wife Susan was super kind to me, and she booked Jerry Jeff, and that was '85. I tell this story because it's a classic for me. When Jerry Jeff got done playing the next day, we had dinner together. He said, "You ought to call Guy Clark." And I was just, like I said, my eyes were rolling back having all these people come up. So he gave me Clark's number. I called Guy Clark, and he answered the phone after about 10 rings and said, "Who the fuck is this?" And I said, "Well, my name's Doyle Jeter." And he goes, "Who gave you this number?" I said, "Well, Jerry Jeff Walker did." And he was, "That stupid son of a bitch." He was railing. And and he goes, "Well, what do you want?" And I explained to him, that Gary P. had played and, this and that, thinking I'd impress him. And he goes, "Well, give me a day to think about it." And I said, "All right." So I called him back, and he answered. He goes, "Hey, man, put me down." And I mean, it was that easy. He was a bit of a card, a little gruff, but we had a good time with Guy. And as a matter of fact, I forgot to say that by that time we were in Shreveport. We opened in 1987, early in Shreveport. Yvette, kind of a subtext, opening a bar restaurant with your wife is probably the worst thing on the planet you can do. For anybody listening out there, don't do it if you want to maintain a marriage. And we had ended up getting divorced for 2 years. We were split, and we got remarried at, of all places, a famous place. A lot of Austinites know it. A place called Fred's Lounge in Monroe, Louisiana. We got remarried there. And I said, "Look, we're going to have to get out of this town. It's people here are going to bring us down. They're going to the Monroe crowd at that time. It was just didn't want to see you happy." So I told Yvette, "We got to move." We moved to Shreveport and opened Enoch. So Guy Clark played soon after that, and Clark enjoyed himself and said, "You need to call Townes Van Zandt, my buddy." And by that time, the shock of it had not worn off, but I was like, "Well, cool, yeah, let's do that." And to myself, I'm saying, "My God, how long is this going to go on?" And Townes, we ended up becoming good friends with John Lomax III, who you may be familiar with. At least the name
John Nova or
John Lomax III.
Oh, and there's and John Nova also is his son. Is that right, or is that
Yes, that's right. His son's a great writer, music writer, and I think he's in Houston. Actually.
He is.
That's right.
He is. Yeah.
And of course, they're the Alan Lomax. Yeah, he's a great guy. And Alan Lomax, the whole family history. But John was, when he said this at first, I busted out laughing. He said, "You understand, John was managing Townes Van Zandt and Clark and those guys. And, managing that was like herding cats, I would imagine, and Steve Earle and all those folks. But John ended up just getting us in touch with a few folks that, he was working with. And it just went on and on with Austin. It's just after a while, as you know, if a musician finds out they're going to get free beer and food at a gig, they tend to like you and get a hold of you. So as the word spread around Austin, we ended up, and Houston, we ended up getting just so many incredible performers out of Austin and Houston, the Cold Cuts and Miss Molly out of Houston, people like that. And out of Austin, we early on, I made friends with Louis Myers, who I'm sure you're familiar with. It's one of the guys that started South by Southwest way back, and he had a great old club called Liberty Lunch there. So we ended up getting all the people that he knew, and he managed Bad Livers, Hillbilly, He even was managing Killer Bees at one time, who, as you know, were out of Shreveport originally.
Oh, yeah.
Shreveport. And, and Lewis would come play with these guys or just come up for the heck of it. And people out of Shreveport, like, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but not really. It was all a big mishmash of musicians coming in. Delbert McClinton, Marcia Ball, and James McMurtry sleep on the couch. It's just on and on. I could name 100 more out of the Austin area, and some of my favorite performers like Julianne Banks. And are you familiar with the Shaken Apostles?
I know who they are.
Freddie Kirch.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Freddie Steady. Yeah, Freddie's record label. I can't think of it. Golly, I know the name of it.
He is.
Oh my gosh,
he's on the Grammy. He's in the Grammy Recording Academy. When he and I and a few of the people went and met with our senator.
Well, he is one of the best people I know. Yeah,
he's a very
Steady
nice
Boy
man.
Records.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Steady Boy Records.
He was in what was that band he played with? The Charlatans or something? The original Charlatans.
He played with this. Well, he did a lot. We could talk for 2 hours about Freddie, but I met Freddie initially. I think it was through Ponty Bones' band. And then he started playing with Jerry Jeff Walker. But he got after he got out of Jerry Jeff's band, he ended up being like, oh my God, everybody and their brother were calling him to play. The Charlatans, he played with Rocky Erickson, of course. Big Brother and the Holding Company. All these West Coast California bands were bringing him into play. And of course, he basically started out with B.W. Stevenson, was I think an early thing he did. But again, he's one of the finest people I know. But all of that crew around Austin, who I would drive to Austin after working till 3 a.m. on a Saturday, would be a Sunday morning 3. I'd drive to Austin because I wanted to go see Tex Thomas and the Danglin' Wranglers at Hutt's Burgers. And I got introduced to Tex Thomas and just fell in love with what he did, and Harvey. And I don't know if you knew that story about Hutt's. If Hutt's was there when you moved down.
Oh, it just closed down last year. They just progress, in quotation marks. But
well, I became friends with a bunch of people that would come and play R.C. Banks, but the big one is Tejana Dames, who were just one of my favorite bands of all time. And they would come up and play, but I'd go down and meet up with these folks, Bobby Bridger and everybody, at Hutt's. And if you never heard about it, on Sundays, Tex Thomas would host. The musicians call it, I think, going to church with Harvey, his real name. And you'd go in there, and everybody would be at Hutt's to see Harvey and with Tex Thomas and the Danglin' Wranglers. And I mean, you'd be sitting there. I was in shock. Joe Ely and people like that would be sitting around Stevie Ray wanting to see Tex and what he did. And if you never heard of his acts or saw them, I mean, look him up on YouTube or something. They were amazing. And raunchy and insulting and just beautiful. All the above. Danny Levin played with them. Frosty, the old drummer from that area. Oh, yeah. It was just insane, the people that would show up there. And a lot of the people that would run out screaming and throwing glasses at him because he would insult them. It was like Rodney Dangerfield from Austin, Texas, on Super Glide. Just amazing.
That sounds really awesome.
I'm kind of getting it's just crazy. But all the Dallas bands would be coming in then, Anson and Thunderberg and the Rockets, and all those great bands from all around would come in and play for us. Of course, Shreveport we had a small joint there, as you know, and we did a lot of ticket sales. That's kind of I don't know how Austin is. I kind of suspect, because I know a lot of the musicians there, they have to leave to and which is fairly common, have to go elsewhere to play. But we would do things in Shreveport, like we'd sell 100 tickets for back then it was a lot of money, $25 a head, 87 to 90. And we'd sell them in, 10 minutes. But it was like Jesse Winchester, Guy Clark, Peter Rowan. I could go on and name 100 bands, Marcia Ball, all the local folks, A-Train and the Bluebirds, Killer Bees, all the Raymond Blake's blues band, one of the greatest blues players of all time.
Well,
but people would come in and what's that?
Oh, you'd book pretty much anything there too. You'd you took a lot of chances on local bands like Picket Line Coyotes, who were great.
I was going to say, on Picket Line Coyotes, we're definitely going to come up eventually. Kevin Russell would do solos on Poetry Night, and a lot of the local musicians, of course, and there's so many, it'd be hard to mention all of them, but we did a lot of the majority of Jerry Beach Blues Band, a lot of the music that came through Shreveport, though, were all out of town. I'd say a majority of it, although we did have a lot of local people, Dan Garner, Barbara Jarrell, on and on. The Blues Jam on Monday nights was always a big event, which was back then was just amazing. Now it's hard to get it together. And the good thing about the Blues Jam is every year they'd have a big festival in Shreveport called the Red River Revel. And most of the musicians that were headliners for that thing would come play. They'd stick around, or we'd have a special jam on Saturday night that we would do. And that's how we got introduced to Trout Fishing in America, who became some of our dearest friends, Ezra and Keith, and Johnny Slim Campbell. I don't know if you ever heard of John or knew of Johnny, but everybody and their brother, you'd look up and Ray Benson would be sitting in with the band, that kind of thing. Dropping names now, but it was always fun. And Gary P. Nunn was just up once a month. Sometimes Gary would come up to play at Enoch's in Shreveport with friends like Michael Hearn. Are you familiar with Michael?
I know the name.
Yeah, and Bill Hearn, Bill and Bonnie Hearn, Mike Hearn. Michael has a festival out in Taos, New Mexico every year. We try to go to in September called Taos Big Barn Dance. And probably every major singer-songwriter and up-and-coming from Texas has played this thing. It's just amazing what he does, him and his family put on out there. It's my favorite festival in the United States. We go out there and just stay for a couple of weeks, usually, and even volunteer. But, if you've never heard of it, check it out. And I'm trying to get back to what we were talking about, Shreveport. So many people played there that it's hard to even remember. And it's funny, the older I get, I'll be 68 next month. I have people bringing me leaflets or saying something to me like, hey, you remember when so-and-so played? And I'm like, they never played at our place. And they'll bring me a leaflet. The Flamin' Lips would be a good example, I guess, of people that I was like, there's no way these folks played here. And a band called Korn, which I'm probably showing my ignorance. I think they're pretty big, but apparently my son loves them. But a lot of bands that played that I just was not aware of, or people that came and played with other bands. That do you remember a band called Hillbilly Frankenstein?
Oh yeah, Jeff Wallace's band.
Yeah, like the guys from Guadalcanal Diary. I was totally oblivious to the fact that that's who these folks were. And then I think it was Mike Buck from REM came over. These were all Athens, Georgia people, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So we got into that scene, too, where a lot of the Athens bands, Birmingham, I kind of skipped over it. I told you I was going around in circles, but the scene in Monroe, the early, I'd say the 84, 85 especially, 86, bands started coming in like Dash Rip Rock out of New Orleans, who would turn on other bands out of Atlanta and Athens and all of that, and people that they would play with, bands that would open for Dash Rip Rock, like Dead Milkmen out of Philly.
Yeah, I heard about that show. I wish I'd been that one. That'd been great.
Oh my God! Well, they came a couple of times, and Bill Davis, real close friends with Mojo Nixon, so Mojo'd come in and play, and but Barking Tribe out of Birmingham,
it's a great
and
band.
Bouffon Jellyfish, Bouffon Jellyfish out of Austin, Texas. They brought one of the Dead Kennedys, but I don't remember who. And I was told about it after the fact. I would be, I'll put it this way. We used to have as much fun as people coming to the bar, so there's a lot of like empty spaces and things I don't remember. But yeah, so Kevin Gordon, you're familiar with Kevin.
Oh yeah. Kevin played my party a few years ago, actually. He's a great guy.
Well, yeah, as you know, Kevin's at the top of his game. He's one of the greatest singer-songwriters in America. I know that for a fact. People like Lucinda Williams, look up to him,
Hey,
which he'll deny.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Kevin is so laid back. But yeah, and so what that kind of scene, I could name, I don't know how many other bands that came through. I can't remember the name of the band out of Oxford, Mississippi that became pretty big and morphed into North Mississippi All-Stars and other bands. I just can't remember their names.
Some Blue Mountain was it, or
Blue Mountain played, but I can't remember the other
with the Hard Soul Poets. They did, yeah. And then I don't know who played. From Oxford, who it was. There's so many different. I mean, it was such a wide variety of music there, and it was always
and I'm glad somehow it got on Oxford because not Oxford proper, but all around it. I became early, right after we opened Enoch's in '80, I guess it was. I started making runs up to the Delta, Mississippi Delta, with friends, and just going on field trips, if you were, and hitting a lot of the old juke joints that were still around. So, we were lucky enough. I met early on a guy, John, can't remember his last name, who was a director at what was the new Delta Blues Museum up there. I say new, it had just opened at the Carnegie Library in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And John, he played with bands up there, so he was instrumental in bringing us people, if you will, like James Son Thomas, just a legend, would play for us, and Mississippi Junebug Jefferson, all these great names. And I can't remember a bunch of them, but a lot of those old Delta Blues guys came and played at our place, and women. I can't think of a couple of the names of the Jessie Mae Hemphill, who was, cool. I don't know if you ever went up to the Delta Blues Fest up in Freedom Village, Mississippi, near Greenville.
Yeah.
But just unbelievable. And our friends Henry and Tookie from Rayville, Louisiana, they'd play up there.
Yeah.
So, you got to...
That's a fantastic band, Henry and Tookie. I remember the Enoch's.
Yeah, Henry passed a couple of years ago. Tookie's still around. He's 90. But, and as a matter of fact, I tend to say it too much that people tell me, but not to blow our own horn. But about a week and a half ago, the Folk Alliance International and the Grammy reps, a guy named, now I won't be able to think of his name, Reed Wick. You probably know Reed out of New Orleans. He's one of the head honchos with the Grammy folks. They came in and did a bunch of filming at the pub at Enoch's for their virtual Folk Alliance International conference they're doing. And we were totally honored because they picked our place to come up and film. And Henry Dorsey of Oh Henry and Tookie, Henry Dorsey's grandson, actually they filmed him playing. So, that was quite an honor, I guess you'd say. They went around and chronicled a bunch of our walls, which are, like a lot of joints are filled with photographs, memories from long ago. As a matter of fact, I had to throw this in, Mike. I know you won't be mad with me, but yesterday morning I heard the news, and I took my broken spoke hat, brought it up there, and nailed it into the wall at Enoch. It'll be there forever. I'm sure you've heard by now that James White passed away.
I did, yeah. I met him a long time ago. And I went to this boat.
Well, he was, I had to do a shout out for that guy because he was such a nice guy to everybody. And I met him through Gary P. Nunn the first time I ever went to the Spoke. And I was just there. Yvette and I were there this past Thanksgiving, went by to get a chicken fried steak on Thanksgiving Day. We were passing through Austin, hoping he would be there. And they said he was not doing well, but just a wonderful guy. And he even stopped at our place in Shreveport once. He had an unusual day off. He was up at the racetrack in Bossier City and came by to say hi. And it was, quite an honor to see James White. But nowhere like the Spoke. I'll keep going there.
Yeah, it's a great place.
You still got a few joints down there. I know there's a lot more. I'm just too old to know them, but I go to Yvette and I go to a place we really love called Sea Boys. Sure, you know
Steve's place. Yeah, Steve that owns Continental Club owns Sea Boys.
Yeah,
also.
The guy that owns the Continental Club. Yeah, friends of ours work there sometime at the Continental from here. Stacy and Ricky. Stacy Seiko from here in Monroe. Okay. She moved to Austin.
Jonas,
made a big deal down there.
Jonas Hotard worked there for a while too. That Sea Boys, he's running the sound.
Yeah. He'd come in and visit when he was around. But yeah, I know Sea Boys, and I haven't even gotten to the Irish stuff. You're probably gonna have to cut me off. But when we moved after about 1990, we wanted to buy a building or a place in Shreveport, and because we knew that was the only way we were going to really make money to own our own place. And after all, we were killing ourselves. We needed to make a living. And I told Yvette, I said, it's time to go home. And we went down to Austin. I won't mention the names of the musicians. You could guess, but a couple of musicians we knew said, come on down here and let's look at some buildings. Maybe we'll go into business together. And it didn't feel right. And so we moved back to Monroe and we opened a place that's actually across. We bought a building across from where we are now and called it Enoch's, of course. And that's when it turned into what I always called a cattle drive. It was just, you could jam 500 people in. We'd buy 2 toilets at a time because one was going to get broken any given night, smashed by some drunken crazy. But that's when we started bringing in some bigger bands, like full bands that would come in and play. And then once a month, I'd be able to do something like, for a good example, is bring in Rick Danko from the band. Rick became a good friend. We'd bring him in. But that was like once a month, I'd be able to do something like a nice Austin. Guy Clark played there, Jerry Jeff, Gary P., trout fishing. They all played the week we opened, as a matter of fact. It was like a blowout. And our old dear friends, Cowboy Mouth.
Oh, yeah.
So Cowboy Mouth would come up and just the place would be destroyed, after they left. And I know there's a bunch of people I'm forgetting, but a lot of bands came in. It would just be almost what I did not want. It turned into a frat party and throwing up everywhere and just, it got to be too much. And we closed it down, actually. Well, there was this band called the Habitual Sex Offenders.
Yeah, I think we got banned there for a while.
You guys behaved yourself. I know. I can't believe I hadn't brought that name up yet. But, and I never would put the name up. I was a wimp. I put HSO.
I don't blame that. That's what kind of stuck, so that was good for us now because I won't get
I know, but it was so great. And Stony Bridge. What was it?
39 Stony Bridge, yeah. And
and all the local bands, I can't think of some of the local bands that played, but there were many of them that played. But it was full bands, and it just got to be too much, too many people, and too much. And it wasn't a pub. There was nowhere really to sit at the bar and talk and watch Jeopardy and and chat. And I guess we were getting older too. So I think it was like 1995. We actually tried to sell the place, and I would stay on as like advisor and come in and do my little shtick, meet people and all that kind of stuff. And it just didn't work. The vibe wasn't there, if you will. And we actually, a lot of people don't know it, and I don't dwell on it, but we actually closed down and got out of it for about a year and a half. But getting out of it meant that we were still doing production, doing shows at other places. So we would do, and something I probably should talk about, but we would do like the St. Patrick's Day we did twice at a different bar location. And we would book them under shows like that under the name was Ethic Ascone, which sounded like a Gaelic word, but it was Enoch's a cafe backwards is all it was. So we would do these things, and by that time we were working with the Louisiana Folklife Fest here in Monroe. When it was here, helping a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit with booking, making suggestions and running the main stage, that kind of thing. So we never got out of it, and Enoch's name certainly was out there. What I forgot, I glossed over that. I forgot. I was going to tell you, when we opened in 1980, it was hard going. I mean, we'd sell a 6-pack of PBR, go down the street, buy 2 more, come back, sell them. It was hand to mouth going. Our daughter Molly was, like 6 or 7, and my son John was born. He was sleeping in a cradle on top of the ice machine. It was romantic, but it got old. And but what happened in 1980 is we were struggling, but we were doing okay. We were not going hungry. And 1980, October 9th, 1980, a few of my friends were sitting around the Enoch's, and we went, hey, it's John Lennon's birthday today. And we were drinking a lot of beer, and we said, let's have a party. So we had a birthday party for John Lennon, October 9th, 1980. And it was probably 10 people maybe were there for it, And sadly, as you know, less than 2 months later, John Lennon was shot and killed in New York City. So what I ended up doing, we were all just devastated. Growing up, the Beatles, John was my favorite. And we were devastated. I got up and put a big sign in front of the pub on giant butcher paper, just said, in loving memory, John Lennon, October 9th, 1940 to December 8th, 1980. And the newspaper found out about it, came and shot a photograph, and the photograph was carried in L.A. and a couple other places. So we got on the front page of the Monroe paper, and it's being kind of silly, but we said, oh my God, John was watching out for us, because our business started booming after that. And it really did. So here we are, 41 years later, basically, and we had our John Lennon birthday, 41st annual John Lennon birthday party this past October 9th. And it's become a real joy, because we even got a nice little note from Yoko thanking us for doing it. People say it's the oldest continuous John Lennon birthday party in the country. I kind of think that's a bit exaggerated, but it's become known, and it's been broadcast on public radio here and there, and we've done interviews. I ended up, I was going to tell you, in another weird chain of events around 94 or 5, I ended up being asked to teach printmaking at the local university here, fine arts printmaking, lithography, and all that. So I ended up having like another dual career while we had the pub going, teaching at ULM here, University of Louisiana at Monroe, up until recently. I'm listed as a advisor / special projects instructor if I ever want to do it, just to keep me legal, I think, on campus. But that has been a joy, and through that I ended up illustrating a book by an author named Jude Sutherland Kessler, an international seller, called On John Lennon and the Beatles. I illustrated the book. So it's kind of, again, it's these big circles and circles of life, as Bobby Bridger would call them, that keep coming around. And I feel bad because you're not asking me.
No, it's just great. It's just
I'm
my
just
favorite
rattling.
kind of, when I don't have to talk, it's the best kind of interview. You did curate the Master Museum for a while in Monroe, is that right?
I did. I was hired there. I thought it would be a good thing. I needed the extra money, basically, while we were promoting and doing shows as under Enoch's moniker, but I needed some extra cash coming in. Yvette actually went to work at State Farm Insurance, and nothing against State Farm, but just hated it. After being at the Mazur, I think I did a good job there. I was up for director, but didn't get it, thank God, really, because we wouldn't have had the incentive to get back in the pub business. But I worked there quite a bit, and I met. Oh my God, that's a whole other branch there. I actually met a lot of artists that I became friends with. One in particular who is a dear family friend. I do prints with her every couple of years. We do limited edition lithos or etchings. Her name is Linda Benglis. And anybody out there who listens to this in the art world will know who Linda Benglis is. You can't pick up a book on modern art. Linda will be 80 this year. You can't pick out a book without some reference to Linda in there. But she's originally a Lake Charles girl. But we became just close friends. So that's a whole other aspect of what we've done or been through, if you will. You do what you got to. I'm sure any bar owners, pub owners, music venue owners out there can relate. I'm always asked people will come and say, we want to open a club or a bar or whatever. And I'll say, what do you have to tell us? And I'll say, well, are you willing to work 7 days a week? Most of them say, well, I thought we'd take off a couple of days. And I went, well, that ain't going to work. Are you willing to clean toilets and puke out of the bathrooms every morning? Well, but that's the reality of it. Do you want to have to work an extra job at times? It's very related, as you know better than anybody can relate it to being a musician. Very, very, very few musicians have the luxury of just playing music. Most have to work a side job or do whatever. But yeah, the art thing. I'm glad you brought that up because all the time from 1980 on, or from New Mexico in 75 on, I always did artwork. I just didn't do a lot of it, mostly due to exhaustion. And now I'm in a position, since my son John, who's named after who, John Lennon, my son John owns the pub. My daughter works there, some part-time, and they're keeping it going. They love music, and they're keeping it going as well. But so I'm able to do more artwork and use the studios at our university since I've been, doing stuff, volunteering. But back to when we opened that joint that was like a cattle drive, and don't get me wrong, we had a lot of fun there. We really did. But it was just not a pub. And growing up as a youngster in New York City, basically, and I would go to New York constantly because Philly's only 100 miles. I'd stay with my grandparents in Washington Heights, and I'd spend the whole day in Greenwich Village. I told somebody recently, I know you'll get a kick out of this. Somebody asked me who the first live band I ever saw was. And now I'm like probably 14 at this point. But my Uncle Jose used to hang out in the village, and he'd take me down to these jazz clubs. Well, the first real band I ever saw was at a place called the Night Owl Cafe, which was famous in the village. And the band was the Fugs.
Oh, wow. That's a hell of a first show.
Yeah. Who are probably, a lot of people I know give the Fugs the credit as the first punk band in existence, and people like, David Johansen of the New York Dolls, they're people that said, oh my God, the Fugs is what turned me on to being crazy and, protesting and just yelling in people's faces. Of course, that's, Bruce Flett, don't you?
I do.
You remember?
Bluebirds.
Yeah. Bruce and Yvette and I and a couple of friends that live in New York, we have a lot of friends up there still, of course. We all went to a Fugs reunion show, August. It'll be 2 years ago this August with Ed Sanders. And he was like two of the original Fugs. But what a show. They did. I'm not going to get into politics here, but they did. They redid their show, The Exorcism of the White House, with film and video and poetry and music. It was unbelievable. It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. But I guess I'm going around in circles. It's those keeping up with those Greenwich Village days, and my Aunt Molly Kelly, who's a pure Irish woman who actually worked with Lou Costello in vaudeville. I'd always be around the Irish music. I have some Irish in me, not as much as my wife, but I'd always be around it. St. Pat's Day in New York and all, and Philadelphia is an Irish enclave, of course. So I was always around the Irish music, and we always had Irish music at the pub. The Conley's Irish Band started playing in the early 80s for us, and a bunch of Robbie O'Connell, people like that. But I told Yvette, I said, look, there's a building over here. She's at State Farm. I'm working at the museum, basically doing side things. And I said, I was almost afraid to tell her, why don't we open the pub back? Enoch's back. And she says, oh my God, thank God. I want to get my old life back, and leave State Farm. So this building came up where we're located now. It looks like an old Irish pub. It was a steak and eggs kitchen and a Dobbs house. You know what they look like.
I went to that steak and egg kitchen after a few old Enoch shows right next door. And then...
yeah, that's exactly what so it looked like a pub. It was designed to look like a pub by Dobbs House in International.
Yeah, I went...
And it came up, and I badgered my way into a sale, basically.
Super bought the building
also?
Tax
records. We did, yeah.
That's
we were
great.
able to get it in 1999. I was able to work out a deal with this guy, and he said the worst thing you can say when you ask somebody if something's for sale. He said, yeah, I got to get rid of that place. And my father's voice came in my head, lowball him. And so I gave, I told him, here's a price that I can pay. And it turned out we had distant relatives in Gina. His last name was Ezel. And, it was Frank Swayze. He was related to Ezel's down there. And he said, I like you. Make it this, and you got a deal. And it was a sweet deal. I set to designing it, the inside, and decorating it like a good old Irish pub. But our logo, as you may have seen on pictures or whatever, the logo I chose, it was better than Idiot Wind. The logo I chose was Enoch's, an Irish pub with a Louisiana attitude. And that's what we went at. We know we're in Louisiana. We know our roots. It was a lot of Louisiana decoration, but there was a lot of Louisiana thrown in. And, my loves, if you will. And at that point, we started almost immediately. I hate to admit it, I had never been to Ireland at that point. I'd never been. My Aunt Molly used to tell me, son, you got to go, you got to go to Ireland, boy, she'd say. And Yvette and I, darn it, if we didn't get on a plane, within a few months of opening, and took off to Ireland. And now we've been back 15 times or so. But we made a lot of connections. We made a lot of friends, and Irish musicians came out of the woodwork wanting to play. And as you know, again, the sadness of the pandemic that we're having now, travel restrictions from certain people that were in office up until just recently, those kind of things. Getting visas. Irish musicians now are having an incredibly hard time coming to the States and making any money because of the restrictions on visas and everything else.
That's insane.
It's terrible. Yeah, it's hard for them to make it or go back. That's why you actually have a whole lot of expats from Ireland that now live in the States. Some have become citizens. Some are living illegally. Most of them have to go back every 6 months to re-up. One of my dear friends lives in Georgetown, north of you, in Austin. His name is Davy R. Wine. He's from County Fermanagh, Northern Ireland, which is where John Lennon's family had roots in Fermanagh, the O'Lannons. And Davy teaches in Georgetown. He has become a citizen, and he plays at a joint called B.D. Riley's, if you've never heard of it in Austin.
Yeah, it's
and the Cork and Barrel, a new place, the Cork and Barrel. Davey Arwine, he is brilliant, as they say. He plays for a lot of the Spanish, there goes my Spanish, the Irish consulate there in Austin. They hire him to play a lot of shows. So you'd love him. He's just a great guy. And he does like they do in the pubs in Ireland. He doesn't just play Irish music, you know. He mixes it up with the Beatles, who were basically Irish. And, he does a lot of country thrown in because of being in Austin. He throws in some Jerry Jeff and, stuff like that. But just a great guy. I'd love for you to meet him sometime.
That would be great.
But again, the Irish musicians I think it was 2005. The pub, Enoch's, I decided we were going to start a Celtic festival in Monroe. Because friends of mine had a Celtic Fest in Jackson, Mississippi. And they said, oh, yeah, we'll help you get it done. So we got a hold of the zoo here in Monroe, Louisiana, and we said, hey, let us do this festival. We'll charge at the gate and give you the profit, part of the profit, as a donation for the upkeep of the zoo. It's good for everybody. And then we would keep the extra for the following year, like a kitty. And from the day one, it kicked in, and all of these musicians started calling, wanting to play the pub or a festival. We didn't have it this past year because of COVID-19, but we, at the pub, and we did in conjunction with the university here, they would have a show on the Thursday night before the fest, which was on Friday and Saturday back then. So we would have the headliners usually play at the university to make extra money for them. But people like, I don't know how familiar you are with Irish music, but Paddy Keenan played for us, Teda, Martine de Cogan, Johnny Spillane, who's our favorite, Liz Doherty, and Donny Carroll, all these great Irish names, people that played for us, Peter Malloy, Matt Malloy's son from the Chieftains. And that became a very big part of what we were at the new joint, that we're in now, our current place, which I say new, we've been there for 21 years now. By the way, I went to the bank when I was looking at buying that building, and I asked my friends there, great bankers who we've been with forever. I said, I want to open a pub now. And I said, I want to call it O'Doyle's. And they went, no. You call it Enoch's, or we're not giving you the money. Which again was a good move. It was like my friends that called me a fucking idiot when I said idiot wins, But that became a big part of this. And what we've done for a long time is we feature a lot of solos and duos, Mike. And as a matter of fact, I talked him into it. You'll appreciate this, because everybody was just dying to get out and play somewhere. I talked Kevin Russell into coming up and doing a solo back in September, Shiny Ribbed, and just slayed the place. But we were only allowed to have like 60 people there because of the restrictions. But it was a real honor to have Kevin play for us. We kind of seen them grow up, if you will. The Gourds played for Enoch's early on. And then Shiny Ribs is just, I'm sure you're familiar with their reputation, as it were.
Oh, yeah.
They're just on fire. And I fell in love with those folks when I'd been out of touch with Kevin for many, many years. And I'm not trying to make like we're best friends, but he is an old dear friend. And we actually went to see Shiny Ribs play a outdoor show in Sherman, Texas, north of Dallas. And we were camping over in East Texas. We went up to see them. It was a free show at a park. And I told Yvette, I said, we have got to go see these folks. They're fantastic. And I walked around the backstage area and stood there, and Kevin was in one of his outfits, like lime green with a purple shirt and snazzy shoes and all. He was looking at me, and all of a sudden he went, what the fuck? And came running over and, grabbed me. And I was like, hey, man, how you doing? And again, not to harp on with it, but we just fell in love with those folks. they're good people and do so much good in your community down there, as you know.
They do. Yeah, Kevin's become kind of a de facto spokesman for the music community here and there.
Yeah. Well, I know his heart is in it, and I know he's got a good heart, and he's trying. Other people we know down there, so many of them. There's that new Feed the Homeless Texas show. I think it's going on in New Mexico too, but a lot of people that we've just been lucky to become friends with. I have to mention Julianne Banks, who's one of my she was a Shreveport girl, and she was with Rotel and the Hot Tomatoes and all that, but she's down there doing her thing, and all the usual, all the folks on that do stuff in your area. It just, I have to pinch myself sometime that we know these folks and have become friends with them. Like all the Los Gonzo guys, John Inman, Bob Livingston, who still comes and does solos for us now and then, Freddie Steady, an old dear friend from Shreveport, a DJ, Jim Strickland, who's down in your area. He's still working, DJing. And of course, Gary P. Nunn. Out of everybody, Gary is probably as close to as a family friend as I guess you'd call it as we got. He's just aces in my book, and some old friends, the Loose Diamonds. Do you know Troy?
Oh, very well. Yeah, he is in.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's again this giant circle, man. You know?
Well, I met Troy.
Troy's up in Bentonville, Arkansas.
He is. Yeah, I just talked to him the other day, and the thing is, I think really because of you is the reason I met Troy, because I came and interviewed for the radio station and became good buddies with those guys after that. And
it's amazing, yeah. And I was out of touch from Troy for God, I can't even tell you how long. And people like John Lomax, the third, he has been able to keep us in touch with some folks because we're all mutual friends. And it got on a very strange note. Bobby Bridger, one of his best friends, is a guy named David Amram. I don't know if you're familiar with David's name, but David Amram, he's in his 90s now. He was one of the beat poets. He traveled with Kerouac and, all this. And I met David Amram through Bobby Bridger up in New York City. And David lives in up near Fishkill, New York. And he started asking me, hey, have you seen Gary P. lately? This guy, one of the beat poets, David Amram, he used to hang out in Austin and go to all the Kerrville Fest, and he knew everybody. He used to sit in with the Gonzo band. So again, it's such a small world, with everybody. The old saying about Austin being third coast or the center of the universe, even though it's changed, I know it's a monster city now. It is true. So much came out of there and started there. And, it's just been a real joy to know everybody from down there. And, it's funny, the Cajun connection in Austin was always so heavy. When we started having Cajun bands at Enoch's in the early 80s, everybody you could name, Beausoleil, Zachary Richard, Dewey Bolfa, Filet, Joel Savoy, and Gene Savoy, and the Bayou Ramblers, D.L. Menard, Rockin' Dupes, C.J. Shinny. I could go on and on. All of those people were running through Austin, playing all the clubs there, especially Antone's. I think Clifton Chenier played Antone's all the time. It just amazes me what the connection that is there, that people that traveled back and forth from Austin to Lafayette to New Orleans to Monroe to Dallas, and, that beautiful circle there.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Well, I don't think people appreciated what we had in Enoch's when I was going to school up there and everything in Ruston, because you'd have like a Cajun band one night, you'd have like a rock band the next night, and then you'd have a soul band the next night. It was really great variety.
People thought that was something calculated, but it wasn't. It's just you had an opportunity to get these people that you enjoyed their music. Some that were heroes and legends, some that were local folks that you were best friends with, like Dorothy Prime and Bruce Gay and all the people that played with the Zillionaires, those people. Yeah, and it was, not an exaggeration, but looking at, one of our biggest honors of all time early on, real early. A guy named Ben Sandmel, who you may be familiar with. He's a music writer, one of the great music writers in the country. He's based out of New Orleans. Ben was a writer for Louisiana Life magazine, and he came up and did an article on the pub and did these great pictures. And matter of fact, there was photos of the Rusty Dreads were featured in the magazine, guys. And a couple of local bands got their photos in there too. God, I feel so bad because there were so many great local performers here, and I just can't remember. I had it, and I should have written them down, but like Wendy Wilson and Bill Bowles and Kim Hill, they had all these. Boys and Girls were one band. The Fields, you knew the Fields.
Matt, the Shepherd Boys. Yeah.
Matt Shepherd and all, and but those folks were all playing in the middle. But the Louisiana Life magazine article came out best music venues in Louisiana, and my God, we were in there, But the reason I say my God is because right before us, number 1 and 2 were Tipitina's and Grant Street Dance Hall. And I was like, holy geez, I can't believe we're even mentioned in the company of these folks. I started looking at...
But I'm not surprised.
Well, I looked at their...
No, I'm not surprised because you were right. I mean, you were great, especially in the cultural wasteland that's North Louisiana. You were consistently open. And
we never looked at it that way, of course, because we were in our bubble, and we just looked at it as, wow, all these incredible performers coming through, and it wasn't all about the music, because we were having like one act plays and art performances and poetry readings and art shows. It was just, again, hand to mouth. We were just living it day to day. I guess you didn't have time to think about it, but when I would look at the monthly calendars for Tips or, Grant Street and places like that, I was like, wow, we're having like a lot of the same people. Not all, of course. By the way, the big place, it was like a cattle drive. A couple of the top shows we did there, in my book, and I mentioned Rick Danko. He was brilliant, but Leon Russell came and did a duo there.
That's right.
Which just blew our minds. And let's see who. John Hartford, just all these folks. Johnny Slim Campbell came in, and I looked at his band that he had backing him. They were backing him up on his tour of his first big album that came out, and it was Joe Ely's band were backing him up. So, that kind of stuff kind of still were taking us aback. I got to tell you real quick, Leon Russell, that tried to remind me to tell you this. I would get up and introduce bands, and I wasn't doing it out of ego or anything. It was fun. And early on, I actually saw it in Austin early on. I saw, can't think of his name, Rod Kennedy, who started the Kerrville Fest. He had a bar music venue there at one time. I hope I'm speaking right here, because Bobby Bridger took us to it. It was called the Checkered Flag. And we went there, and he got up and introduced Butch Hancock, who was doing a solo. And they passed the hat for money, and all of that just really set in with me. That would have been around 77, I guess, 78. So from then on, I'd introduce bands, and we tell people who were coming, next week or the next night or next month. And, it was fun. It was fun. Of course, I'd get a few in me, and I'd probably speak Dutch sometimes. Nobody would understand. But when Leon Russell came, we were sitting in the back room, and he was eating dinner we had made. And I said, well, Leon, do you want me to introduce you? And Leon Russell looks me dead in the eye, lowers his sunglasses, looks me dead in the eye and says, well, I think they know who I am. And that's like one of my favorite stories of all time of Enoch's, 41 years. We would still be taken aback at times, and still are, people that drop by to say hello. Bono and the Edge dropped in a couple of times back in the 80s, just out of pure chance. They were staying at a hotel in Monroe writing songs on the way to New Orleans for a show. And just by chance, they were staying at a hotel that Yvette was working part-time at. She sent them to the pub. I didn't meet them. Yvette did. I never met him. But, the old Austin stories, I know you're familiar with Asleep at the Wheel.
Oh, yeah.
I think their original bass player, when they first moved down, of course, Ray Benson's from Pennsylvania originally, and Jerry Jeff's from New York, upstate New York. When they first moved down to Austin, a guy named Tony Garnier was playing bass with them. And I didn't know him, but unbeknownst to me, his brother, Dijama Garnier, became a dear friend, close family friend. DJ was playing with Zydeco Ranch out of Austin, Pawnee Bone, and all these folks. Well, long story short, Tony has been playing bass guitar and conductor, if you will, of the band with Bob Dylan for 26 years now, I think. So when Dylan came to Monroe, we were able to have a private party for him. And Dylan showed up, got pissed off at me because I had his name out on the sign. And he had a lot of wine in him, and he left. So the party, the band, and all of us stayed up till sunup. It was a private party. But the reason Dylan got mad was it said on the sign, Tuesday night, post Bob Dylan concert party. And he was pissed because his name was it, but he was fairly well lit. And the band was happy he left because we ended up having a pretty epic time of it. But I guess I'm mentioning this stuff because we haven't been any stranger to, people just stopping in. Willie Nelson dropped by with an old guy from around this area. You might remember Horace Logan. He's from Monroe, Louisiana originally. He was the announcer at the Louisiana Hayride back in the 50s. And he's the guy that said, Elvis has left the building, the iconic quote. But him and Willie Nelson had known each other since the 50s. And I don't know, I'm assuming you have time for this.
Oh, sure. We got all the time in the world.
Well, one quick story then. Hoss Logan moved back he went from Shreveport with the Hayride. He went to Dallas and started the Cavalcade of Stars, and then he moved to California. He moved around, but he ended up back in Monroe, Louisiana, opened a record shop, and he would come by Enoch's every day for his short beer and would tell us all stories, which we ate up. Kenny Bill Stentz and all of us would sit there just eating up these stories he would tell us about Johnny Cash and Hank Williams, everybody, Johnny Horton. And people would come to town in concert, and Hoss got to where he would call me and say, what are you doing? And I'd say, well, I'm not doing anything. And he says, well, Willie's playing tomorrow night. Get your drawers on. We're going to see him. And of course, free ticket, free show. And the one time he said, we're going to go see Willie tomorrow night. You're coming with me. I went, well, okay, sir. So we got there and knocked on the back door of the Civic Center. The door opened. The road manager said, you can't come in. Hoss said, tell Willie Hoss Logan's here. And 2 seconds later, Willie opened the door. He said, get in here. We walked in. Willie slapped a pass on my leg and said, you're with him. You're my friend. Go get some food in the back in the green room. We got to go do a sound check. Well, in the green room, nobody was in there except one guy, and it was a guy that was on tour with Willie back then. They did a duo tour. It was B.B. King. So I got to sit with B.B. for I don't know how long, just him and me talking. Hoss walked in. B.B. goes, Mr. Logan. He knew him. Everybody knew Hoss. So anyway, after the show, Willie Nelson grabbed Hoss and said, y'all come with me on the bus so we can visit now. And I got on the bus. You'll see why I'm telling you this whole story. I got on the bus, and I actually gave Willie an Enoch's bumper sticker, and he slapped it on the wall of the bus. And I said, Willie, if you don't mind, would you do a promo for a little radio show I was doing at that time, which you may not know about. It was called Enoch's Louisiana Connection. I did it every Sunday for about 2 years at the university. And you can imagine how out of control that was. But I would get people to do demos. Ran into Neil Young once and got him to do a demo. That's a whole other story. But Willie said, sure, and he did a demo. So after a while, we're sitting there with Hoss, who hated pot. And Willie immediately rolled up a joint, was blowing smoke at Hoss, and we were helping him partake of it. Willie looked at me and he said, "So you know this old son of a bitch?" Talking about Hoss. I went, "Yes, sir, I do." And I said, "As a matter of fact," I told Willie, "Hoss told me that you and him used to lay carpet in Dallas to make extra money." And Willie looked at Hoss, he looked at me, and Willie Nelson said to me, "Son, we laid a lot more than carpet."
I'll bet they did.
And it was just, it was brilliant, you know? I mean, again, every time I think about it, I'm like, I have to pinch myself to think of all the fun and all the good times and memories we've had. I always swore I wasn't going to be one of those people that sat around talking about, "Oh, I remember back when so-and-so." But, it doesn't hurt if you're not just, I guess, name dropping. What we're doing here is just a lot of fun. I've done a lot of local magazine stuff and newspaper and, all that, and a couple of international things and all. But, it's always like for me, I'm a nobody, but it's the same questions basically. And you don't really get into it. So this is a gas being able to do, especially with a friend.
Oh, well, thank you. I do appreciate you doing this, because I wanted to get, people just telling stories, and, it's great to have that, on record and everything, just having all the things.
Well, it's awful nice. It is. I think there is some files at the Louisiana State Museum in Baton Rouge that they have on us, with some of this stuff that we've done. And you know Mike Manning, don't you?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Oh, yeah. Mike and I are supposed to do something, he said, try to get some kind of, he did a little interview with me at the Country Music Hall of Fame 2 years ago, I guess it was. And of course, Mike is the curator for the historical collection there.
He's doing that, and he's doing video editing as well, too. He does all the social media
videos,
right. And he's gotten really good at that.
It's amazing. And album production. He's put out a couple of albums under their moniker there. I don't know if it's happening or what's going on, but I know he had a little interest from, what's his name? Jack White.
Yeah.
To possibly do some pressing. I don't know if that's where Mike was instrumental in getting that Jerry Lee Lewis live at live at the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, but Mike is like, God, he is in hog heaven being up there, and he is the most knowledgeable person that I've ever met about country music. So I went up and hung out with him for a couple of days in Nashville. I had to bring a friend of mine up there, sadly, to go see his brother who was passing. But I got away from that and went and visited John Lomax III. He lives up in Nashville. Went and saw Mike. But Mike said, "You're not going to believe what's showing at the Country Music Hall of Fame right now, the big exhibit." I went, "What?" He said, "It's called Outlaws and Armadillos." It was the exhibition about Austin, Texas music.
I think I saw that.
And oh my God, what a show! I think it's still up.
It's pretty amazing. I'm not sure if they're even open. Are they open still, or they closed down a bit?
I don't know. I think it may be open on a limited basis, but I don't want to misspeak there. But it hadn't been open very long, and Mike took me on like a private tour, and I did a little interview with somebody out there at a camera recording. He wanted me to say a few words about Enoch, and when all the Jerry Jeff and everybody. Jerry Jeff is featured, fairly prominently, as is Willie, in that exhibition. Gary P. It was nice to see Gary P. and Bob Livingston get some nice footage out of the whole thing. Some exhibition, without a doubt. And but the coolest, and Doug Somm is featured too prominently, which God, they should have. If they didn't, something was wrong. But the coolest thing about that exhibition, I thought, or one of the coolest, was they have a whole section about the California connection with the Flying Burritos, the Birds, and all of those folks, which, the natural progression. But like a lot of people say, if it wasn't for the Austin music scene going out there, Doug Somm and the Jennifer Douglas Quintet and Rocky Erickson, that, you know, that whole scene in California might not have bloomed like it did that quick either. Take into account that Buck Owens and everybody was already, you know, the Bakersfield.
I was going to actually tell you, Mike, was the reason I went to that Bob Dylan concert in Monroe. He took me there. We almost got to meet him. We saw him walking into the
was that the one? Well, you know what? I wish I had to promise, because what happened was they were going to play at the Municipal Auditorium in Shreveport. Dylan was. He was biting at the bit to go stand where Hank Williams, his hero, go stand where Hank sang. And what ended up is they were redoing the Municipal, Maggie Warwick and Alton Warwick, again, legends in music over that way. And the air conditioning systems were broke down and they couldn't book the thing out. So Tony Garnier called me and said, "Hey, man, isn't there a music venue in Monroe we could play?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" I thought he was kidding. And, you know, I immediately said, "Yeah, you can play Enoch's." And he laughed. And I said, "No, there's the Monroe Civic Center." I said, "The theater is about a 3,000 seater," because I knew they were playing smaller venues. And he said, "Can you get me the contacts for all that?" I went, "Sure." I mean, Dylan was literally, they were hunting for a place to play. It was a Tuesday night. And anyway, long story short, I got him connected with the Civic Center people. Their tour company then that was planning this tour sucked. I'll put it that way. There was somebody out of Tulsa, Oklahoma that didn't do their job, and it wasn't a sellout. And a lot of it due to that fact. But what happened was Tony called, like I said, he called and said, "Hey, man, we're set to play." I was in shock. And he said, "We're coming in Monday. We got a day off, so let's have a party." And, you know, that's how that all worked out. But I had to promise Tony and all them that we wouldn't say a word about it. But it was so much funny stuff happened with that. Dylan insisted on staying at the old Howard Johnson's motor court near the Civic Center, which was a dump, literally. And Tony called me up when they got in. They got in like early in the morning and said, "Hey, Bob wants to go walking around and exploring. Can you make a list of cool stuff?" So I made a list and I brought it down there and handed it to Dylan. And it was like a motorcycle car museum, you know, an Army Navy surplus store, that kind of thing. And he just walked around downtown West Monroe, shopping, looking at stuff. We saw him from Dennis Goodwin's record shop looking in the window, but he didn't come in when he saw me and the band there. That was when Bucky Baxter and Johnny Jackson was with it, those folks.
That's so funny. And, I was at Orbit Records that day too, and two friends of mine were going, "Hey, we just met Bob Dylan." And I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, he was just down the street in Antique Alley."
Well, he went into Mojo's. Yeah, he went into Mojo's. I put that on the list. Well, the funny thing, I took the band. We went to Ma and Pa's Kitchen, and Dylan didn't want to go. He stayed in, I think, if I remember right. Hard to remember, but you know, he was pleasant enough and everything. And I had met him before, once or twice on different occasions. You know, I guess we were starting to talk about Mike Manning. That's how that all came about. Yeah,
Mike took me to that show. And then also, I remember I lived in Nashville for 2 years in the early 2000s. And he said, "Yeah, I'm booking this weekly thing." I think it was Cowboy Jack Clement's thing. And Guy Clark played. He was a special guest. Oh, yeah. And that was fantastic. And the next week was going to be John Prine.
Who was the special guest?
It was Cowboy Jack Clement's show. He showed a bunch of old home movies of Johnny Cash and everything. And then Guy Clark was a special guest that week I was there.
Oh, he was a special guest. Yeah, yeah. Then, I'll be darned.
And the next week was John Prine. I got sick that day, and I couldn't. I was just throwing up, and I was like, "Man, I can't go to that show. Well, I want to go to it so badly."
You know, and again, these are all these connections that we have. You have, I have, Mike, and everybody. You know, Paul Griffith played drums with Prine forever.
It's funny.
Paul Griffith from A-Train.
Paul. I met Paul randomly at the Slow Bar in Nashville and realized we're both, you know, knew all the same people. We knew you and Mike and everything like that.
Yeah.
He played with
Bruce Gay.
He played with Alison Moore for a while, and he played with
with everybody. Yeah. What's her name? Carter. Charlene Carter.
Charlene Carter. He played with Karis Matthews also, that British band. She had some British band, and then she.
Yeah, I am familiar with that.
He said they went and saw Radiohead over at Glastonbury. They opened for on that same day as radio.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Paul, you have to rip it out of Paul to get him to tell you these stories. But
I need to get him on the show.
But it's just amazing. You should. I think Paul, I'm pretty sure he's still living in California.
He was in,
I think he's biting at the bit to move. I'll probably get in trouble for this. Biting at the bit to move to Guatemala with Bruce Gay and Randy Gwines. So,
wow.
Who knows what might
happen.
There,
yeah.
There'll be a whole new band.
Sounds like a Netflix movie waiting to happen or something.
It is.
Well, what was it? Paul was my lunch buddy. I would go. I'd worked in Nashville.
Really?
And he would.
Oh, that's
cool.
It's like,
hey, where you want to go to lunch? You pick it. I was like, because Paul, I didn't really know a lot of places, but Paul knew all these just fantastic Mexican places. He'd go in the convenience store, walk through the door, walk through the back room, and then there'd be a restaurant back there. And so it was incredible.
He knew the real joints.
He knew the joints. Yeah, it was great. I miss hanging out with him. That was a lot of fun.
Well, did you know or know of Mike Rhodes when you were up there in Nashville?
I didn't. I don't know names. Somebody's names sound familiar.
I mention it because he's from New Orleans. Well, if you look on kind of like hundreds and hundreds of albums, he played bass on all of them. His money gig, as he says lately, because recording industry has gotten so different, phoning in your parts and all that. But his money job, as he says, is he's on the road with Joe Bonamassa most of the year, or was until all this happened. Which we're doing the same as anybody else. We're lucky in Louisiana, if you will. As a matter of fact, my wife, myself, my daughter, two of my grandkids, a lot of friends have all been through COVID-19.
Oh, you have it?
Thank God. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've all had it. And thank God we made it through. My friend in San Antonio who turned me on to New Mexico, Lewis, we buried him last July. He passed from it. 2 tours of Vietnam and just no underlying problems. But, I don't mean to go on with that, but we all know what a real challenge it's been, if you will, for everybody. But
absolutely.
We've been able to stay open. I say we, my son's been able to stay open, and a lot of it due to his, rolling with the flow. And we've been allowed, Enoch has been allowed to sell food to go. And it's still, nobody can stand at the bar, and you can have a few people at tables inside. And luckily we have a patio outside, which is where we have the music. But you're limited to 50% right now capacity,
it's kind of tough,
which means 40, 50 people. But yeah, I think it's kind of like that in Austin as well. Things are starting to open up a little bit, but a lot of people are shutting down, will never be heard from again. I hear Austin is in some dire straits with a few places.
There are a few places that are bad right now, but they were supposed to get some stimulus money. I'm not sure what all the we've lost a lot of good places, and a lot of talent is kind of drained out of Austin.
Everywhere. New York City. Of course, there's a lot of the incredibly high prices of renting places for a venue is I won't even go into that, but I know that's a big consideration in Austin in particular.
Really, if you can, it's good to buy the building if you can, because it's
always good to do that. It's almost impossible to make a living if you don't own your property. But then again, when you're looking at properties that cost millions and millions of dollars, it's kind of hard to do. But yeah, places in New York are gone that'll never be seen again. Around here, there's a few, but we're hanging in there. Enoch hopes to be around quite a while longer with my sons. Now that he owns it, they're all keeping going. He's more into the sports part of it than the music, but he does love music, and he's trying to keep it going. Some bands that are coming in again. You know what, Mike? We're back into that thing. People are always saying, "Oh, Enoch has changed. It's all about younger bands." Well, you know what? I mean, fuck that. It was all about young bands back in the 80s, in the 90s, and the younger bands that are coming through now. Hell, half the old bands, a lot of them are gone. They're not even alive anymore. But the new bands coming through, oh my gosh. Every time I go out to another town, I go out to see the music, whether it's Austin or anywhere else. But we have some folks coming through from Georgia, like Andrea and Mud. I'd love to get you together with them. They're just my favorites right now out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Desdemona, who are out of the East Texas Piney Woods, north of Houston. People like that. And a lot of local folks, man. We've got some people coming up here that are just blowing our minds. A band called Astro Motel, you might have even heard of, out of this area. And Josh Madden, just a whole lot of great performers from here.
That's fantastic.
So things change, but they stay the same too.
They do, and it's good that there's a place to, a place that it's going to be there, and it's going to be, you can build a fan base there, and it's it's good for everybody. Your music's a necessary thing.
Yeah, well, there's other venues in town and others opening, and we're not counting our chickens or whatever they call it, or taking it for granted. That's one thing I try to instill in my son and daughter is, you got to stay on top of it, and if you do not treat musicians badly, or I'll have my say.
Oh yeah,
and they don't. They treat musicians like we always did. Not a musician is never, ever paid for a drink or food at Enoch's. That's for damn sure. And, it's funny. I remember the first time Jerry Jeff Walker played for us, I was like freaking out. One of my idols was there. And he said, just calm down. He said, all my friends told me what good folks y'all are. And how about that gumbo? Did you make any gumbo? He knew all about it. And he did. He told my parents were actually there for the show, and he said, your son doesn't realize musicians get treated like shit 90% of the places out there. And he said, but your son and your daughter-in-law treat us really well, so we'll keep coming back. And that, I guess when it boils down to it, that's kind of the pride we've taken from all this is. The musicians in particular knew we were good folks, and they wouldn't get shafted or, treated badly or saying, we don't have the money to pay you tonight. You've been through it. You've seen it all.
Oh yeah. It's, we always had a blast there too. I remember, Lou Diamond Phillips show is kind of an infamous show in our kind of history because we didn't play the show, but I think we asked to open the show, and then Yvette got wind. We're going to play.
Who was that you opened for?
Lou Diamond Phillips. We were asked.
Oh yeah, Lou. Yeah, he played for us a couple of times.
Yeah, we went the first time. We asked to open the show, and we're going to play La Bamba for 45 minutes straight. And that
oh no,
that got us.
I remember this.
That got us knocked off the bill. So I came and y'all got us in for free, and we came and drank, and then we terrorized Lou at the end of the night and made him sign stuff.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I think
he's such a sweet guy. Yeah. He really is. A friend of mine was in Tokyo, Japan at the airport 2 years ago, and an old buddy of mine, we used to run in Luckenbach and tear it up down there a lot. He lives here, but he was in Tokyo, Japan. He looks over, and there's Lou Diamond Phillips getting in line to go on the plane. He went up to Lou Diamond Phillips. Now, this was 2 years ago. Lou Diamond played at probably 90, 95, 96.
94, 95, yeah.
At Enoch's. Sometime in there, yeah. And my friend Leslie Deshotel goes up to him and goes, "Hey, Lou Diamond Phillips, how you doing, man? I saw you play at a place in Monroe, Louisiana once." He goes, "Enoch's, how's Doyle doing?" I mean, I couldn't even imagine anybody could remember that. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's a real deal too.
He was
just
really
a sweetheart.
He was a kind person because we had a lot to drink, and then our singer Elroy goes, "Richie, don't get on the plane." Up with you? Yeah, he's telling him, "Don't get on the plane, Richie." So it was like just we were just giving him. It was pretty funny. So he was pretty kind. He took my son and my nephew on his bus and played video games. I think the second time for half the night. But that's cool.
But yeah, just good people, and that's the story of Enoch's, if you will. People that I hear griping about musicians and how they don't do this, they don't do that. I tell every one of them, I can count on one hand, if that, the number of times I've had musicians either not show up or that did a terrible show and we had to shut it down. And that's on one hand. And, everybody, it's like, Jerry Jeff is, since he's passed recently, he's on everybody's mind, certainly on ours. I got to talk to him, May before he passed, for a nice little visit. And, it was a sad deal. It was obvious that his singing voice was not going to work for him anymore. But it was just a pleasure to be able to talk to him. And he sent Yvette and I a sweet note, texted us a sweet note a couple of weeks before he passed. So, I guess the point is, again, that's a big part of these 41 years is so many people, the 99% of the musicians we've worked with have just been good people. And I'll go to my grave defending that. No doubt about it.
Oh yeah, it's great. And do you remember David Garza, right? David, I guess is when he played as.
Yes.
He played on that Fiona Apple record that was like the number one most critically acclaimed record of last year. And
it's amazing. It's so good to see a lot of the old, I say old timers. I mean, God, he used to play for us at Shreveport in the 87, 88 in that time frame. So good to see folks doing well. I know Troy. I don't know Troy well at all. We've been out of touch, but we're Facebook friends now. And so good to see all the stuff he's doing. Those animated things he did with Ray Wiley Hubbard and people like that. It's just amazing. That's
hysterically funny too. That the dog with the dog. You're talking about the one with the dog?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he did.
He did something.
He did New York Dolls video, and they did some Kinky Friedman,
right,
and Kinky Friedman stuff too for his campaign.
The New York Dolls video is the one I should have remembered because it's all monkeys. Yeah, it's all like monkey. There's a monkey singing and everything.
It's called Dance Like a Monkey.
Tony Garnier used to play bass for Buster Poindexter band too.
Back when
Dylan's bass player.
Yeah.
When Dylan wasn't on tour, which is almost never, Tony would sit in with him. And Tony's not like a best friend, but we're friends. We chat now and again. I don't want to give that impression, but he's always so kind to us when Dylan's in the region or in the area. I'll give him a call and, hey man, he'll be like, you need tickets? And I'm like, nope. We bought our tickets like everybody else, but he's just a good guy. His reputation in Austin is, I'm sure, well known. Another guy that used to play for us a decent amount, who was just another sweetheart, who passed away right after Jerry Jeff, is Hal Ketchum.
Yeah.
Hal was an old friend, and we've lost so many of them this past year. It's just it's that time of life, as they say. And then Billy Joe Shaver.
Oh yeah, Billy.
We were trying to get Billy Joe to play for. He agreed to play for my official retirement party, and then I got unretired for a little while, and then he went down pretty. He had been sick for quite a while. So that's one of my big regrets. We never had Billy Joe Shaver play at Enoch's, but we sure got to be friendly with him. We'd see him and he'd recognize us, and I'd say, hey Billy Joe, can we get our picture taken? Hell yeah, cuz, what do you think I'm here for?
Super nice,
that kind of thing. But he was that way with everybody.
Yeah, I met him once in Nashville, and he was really, really nice. And
yeah, that great music venue down near San Marcos called Riley's Tavern.
Yeah.
We went there to see him once.
Oh,
yeah,
San Marcos,
I've seen him a few times. We went there to see him at Riley's Tavern, and oh my God, what a night that was! Because it's not a real big place, and it was inside that he played. And oh my God, we were sitting right up in front of him. The sound guy, Yvette had hurt her hand that day, and the sound guy, I begged pity from him and said, "Could she sit down here?" And he cleared away all the guitar cases, and we sat right there. So, we were in like Flynn, as they say.
That's fantastic.
What a great place. Another one of the great music venues that are left down there that you got to support. I mean,
some great stuff.
I'm a creature of habit. I go to the Spoke every time I'm there.
It's all kind of condos around it now and stuff too. It's just
it's amazing, isn't it?
I saw it happen too. That was like they built the condos around it, which I'm glad they did. I'm glad they didn't try to tear it down or anything.
Well, the first time I ever met Tex Thomas, and I can't think of Harvey's last name, but the first time I ever met Tex Thomas, and again, his band was like a superstar band, that played with him every Sunday at Putz. I walked outside of the Broken Spoke. We were there to see Gary P. No, you know what? No one. We were there for a tribute to Bob Wills' Texas Playboys. And as a matter of fact, Townes Van Zandt sat with us. His mother and him sat with us at our table, which kind of took us. I didn't know him then. He sat down with us and introduced himself, and it was just real sweet. But Doug Somm hosted the show, and they had like 4 or 5 pedal steel guitars on stage at the Spoke with Herb Steiner, Doug Somm, the original Leon Roush, I think. No, Herb Remington from the Bob Wills, all playing steel guitars for one of the parts of the show. And Ray Benson, Gary P., they were all there. But I went outside to my truck to get something, and when I walked out, this guy was bent over putting a bumper sticker on the back of my truck. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He looked up. It was Tex Thomas. And he was putting one of his bumper stickers on there. It said on it, "Dare to Dangle." Tex Thomas and the Dangling Wranglers. And I went, "Hey, Tex." And he went, "Is this okay, man? I'm not." And I went, "You can put 20 of them on there. I don't care."
Yeah, I want to hear.
If you're not familiar with that, man, you got to check him out. He's got songs. As much as I said what a character he was and things that he did to clear the house sometimes, but people pissed off at him. He did these songs. There's one he does called "Highways of Gold." Just look it up on the internet, and it's one of the most beautiful songs you've ever heard.
I was just looking on Spotify, and he has an album on the on Spotify called "Dare to Dangle." So
Dare to Dangle, yeah, I think it's a white cover with black "Dare to Dangle" and roping.
Correct,
on it.
yeah. And
yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Big fan.
Yeah, what I do for each guest is I give them like the Spotify login, have them put together a playlist. If you would mind doing that would be awesome. Because
oh, really?
Yeah,
oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm capable of doing it though.
Or you can just send me the songs.
Could I
can put on there.
to you?
Oh yeah, totally. Just and you can look.
I'll just text you. How many songs?
Like 20 songs usually, and then or more if you want to. Yeah, it'd be great, and I can look them up on Spotify and see if they have them and everything.
Of all kinds of stuff, or Austin, Texas,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's we go beyond Austin with it, so it's
Well, as it turns out, 90%, well, not 90, but 80% of it probably be Austin stuff anyway, but yeah, I can tell you right now, one of them is Volver by Flaco Jimenez, his version. So get ready is all I can tell you.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. It's been interesting, the wide variety of music that's on the playlist.
Have you ever interviewed Gary P.?
I haven't.
You should.
I've never been to him before. I've met Ray Wiley a few times through Troy, and and then but yeah, I've never met Gary P. There's a lot of people want to get on the show too. A lot of
and Bob Livingston. Bob is working on a book all about the Gonzo band, the beginnings of it, which were actually I don't remember the name of the original band, but it became Michael Murphy's backup band up in Red River, New Mexico. Which again, one of those full circles of meeting these guys and talking to them about their days in Red River and Taos and even Las Vegas, New Mexico. We all get a kick out of talking about those days. And Bob Livingston is just a natural-born storyteller too. He's amazing.
He's got a son in Tucker also, I think, too. I know Tucker from...
He sure does.
You remember Jerry Giddens, right? Jerry Giddens' band, the bass player.
Jerry Giddens. I forgot about him. Yeah. The Walking Wounded.
Yeah. We had a band, and the guys in that band became friends of ours. And then we, Dylan, the bass player, played with Tucker Livingston and played with Shaver, which was Eddie Shaver and Billy Joe at the time.
Of course. Wow. Tucker, I've met Tucker. We're friends on Facebook. He does the usual we all do, like and love and, that, make a little comment. But I think he lives in India, if I'm not mistaken.
I know he went there back and forth a lot. And he was like some kind of like...
is he back now?
I don't know. I'll have to ask Dylan and find out. But he's like some kind of... Is he a Tai Chi like master or something, or some kind of martial arts master?
Something. Yeah. And the stories that Bob Livingston, about traveling over in India with Terry Allen in particular, are freaking hilarious.
I love India. I've been twice. It's been great.
I have never been. Terry Allen is, I've mentioned him earlier on. Terry is, he's been featured out at the barn dance, Taos barn dance, Mike Hearn's thing. This past one was canceled, but the mainstays out there this last year was James McMurtry. He used to play for us quite a bit. And Shiny Ribs was playing, Troutfish America, Terry Allen, Joe Ely, go on and on. Those are all the folks that have that connection out there. Of course, the Lubbock connection is probably may not have been an Austin music scene early on without Lubbock, because that's, Joe Ely's from there and Bob Livingston's from there, actually, Terry Allen. But I was a big Terry Allen fan of his artwork before I knew he played music. And when Lubbock on Everything, I guess you're familiar with that album of his, when it came out in the 70s, I was like hooked. And I've been lucky enough to, hang with him and visit with him. We have mutual friends. He'd have to explain to him who I am, with Enoch's and all that stuff. But just a sweetheart, another genuine, real person who's an absolute true artist. Have you seen his sculpture at, what is the name of the museum there in Austin?
There's the modern. There's a couple Laguna Gloria. That's by my house. Yeah. So yeah, it's
Have you seen Terry Allen's sculpture there? The Chevrolet.
I haven't, but I need to go up there and check it out. Then I'm not.
You got to go.
Away,
it's literally I think it's a 53 or 52 Chevrolet that was cast in bronze. And I mean, everything on it is cast in bronze. There's a wheel missing with a brake drum and all. It's all bronze casting. And there's glass in the windows, and on the inside a radio plays with music from what is his name? Wolfman Jack kind of era, I think, from down on the border radio. But it's brilliant. And the lights on it light up, the back tail lights. So there is some glass and some tail light stuff, but everything else is bronze inside and out. It's awesome. It's full size.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like you walked into the woods and saw a junker. That's what it looks like. It's absolutely brilliant.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Well, what are your plans now that you're kind of semi-retired, and are you just traveling, seeing your family and everything?
My son, John, I kiddingly say it, he allows me to still hit him with an idea for a booking now and then, some Irish folks coming through. He is, like we were, struggling a little. We didn't give it to him. He's paying us for it. That's our retirement, if you will. But he's struggling now, in particular, with the pandemic. But I'll tell him, hey, would you consider booking, let any band, and he'll say, well, let me think about it. And usually he does, but I know not to get him in too deep water. It's, from Austin in particular, even, musicians in Austin, the vast majority of them don't make any money. Cover charges, sometimes there are none. We do one at the pub or pass the hat for musicians, but Mike, back in the 90s, we talk about this all the time. Back in like 1990 to 97, you could tell people in Monroe, Louisiana, hey, it's a $10 cover charge for Miss Molly and the Whips from Houston. They wouldn't even blink an eye. Or it's $50 ticket. We're selling 150 tickets for Leon Russell. Wouldn't even ask. Just buy them, It's tough now. You have to put people's feet to their fire to even buy, tickets anymore. It's hard, not easy to do. So I guess my point is, he's letting me give him suggestions on music now and again. And usually it's somebody I've seen on a trip, like this band Trio Desdemona, like a rockabilly bluegrass band out of that town north of Houston. I can't think of the name of it, but he'll say, "Yeah, let's do it." Yeah,
it must be Beaumont. Yeah. That's cool. That's great. Oh, Beaumont, or are they from Beaumont? Or
no, it's not Beaumont. Beaumont is where Kevin Russell was born.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I remember. But yeah, no, I can't think of the name. It's a funny name. It's like Waxahachie, but it's not that one. That's further north.
What that is?
It's northwest of Houston in the woods up there, up in those piney woods area. And it's got a funny name. You'd know it in a minute. But that's an example. We saw them New Year's Eve in Taos 3 years ago, and I fell in love with them and booked them. And again, that weird circle turned out the bass player was, we're like third cousins from Gina area, but, it's that kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to do in retirement is I'll come up with an idea now and then. I'm still the John Lennon party, God willing, will keep going on, and, I'll help host it. We did a tribute to Jerry Jeff Walker, back in, Jerry died in October, I guess. Yeah, October. And in November, we had a tribute to Jerry Jeff with a lot of local musicians. Monty Russell had hosted it as a musician. So I'll do stuff like that. But friends of ours here, half the bands in town get together and do a big Bob Dylan birthday party in May every year. So, I go to stuff like that, and I'll go to the pub and have a pint with the boys and girls now and again. But in general, my wife, Yvette, and I have a camper, and we tow it to pull along. We'll tow it down to Green or New Brunswick out there in the Guadalupe and stay for a week, go out to New Mexico. That's our plan, do more of that.
That's a great plan.
My mom has moved over to McKinney, Texas, where my sister lives and some family, and we'll just hit McKinney on the way to New Mexico. We want to spend more time in New Mexico, more time in upstate Pennsylvania / New York, where all my family lives, up there near where the old Yasgur's farm, right down the road. And that's it, man, and enjoy 5 grandkids. Man, we'll talk some more, and, take care, everybody,
man,
family and everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.
And give our love to the family, and we will talk to you very soon.
Sure will, Mike. Take care, man.
Thanks so much, man. See ya. That was Doyle Jeter, Monroe, Louisiana's Midnight Mayor. His place, Enoch's Irish Pub and Cafe, is still open in Monroe. His son, John, as you heard, manages and owns the business now. Do stop by if you're in the Monroe area. And also check out Doyle's art at Doyle Enoch or EnochDoyleJeter.com. If you have any questions or comments, email us at ranch@chickenranchrecords.com. Talk to you soon.